Also, maybe something that's to me was very important. It occurred to me when I started to be interested in teaching or learning the learning process of tango. There was a couple of motivations. Eric always asks you, what is your motivation? And my motivation is that I'm obsessed by speeding up the learning curve of leaders, in particular leaders. So because I can calculate, maybe it's my business background. If you need more leaders, then this is not the way to get more leaders. It just takes too long, or people leading. It occurred to me that all kinds of methods or approaching of experiencing could maybe speed up the learning process of leading. Now my poor kin.
Yeah, no, you're right, but you can't set the thing to a fixed thing. I mean, because sometimes the group dynamics or the motivation, even throughout the society in general, changes.
Yeah.
People nowadays, and this is one of the big problems which we have to accept. If you say we need more young people, then you say something that is known from your past. This is how it was. Things are changing.
Yes.
If you look at city councils, there used to be young people being part of the city council. The youngest person now is about 50. People's interest and societies change. People who learn an instrument, in early days, 50% of the young people started to do a weekly class on instruments. They don't do that anymore. So you can say, no, we need more young people. Their interest changes. You have to find ways to awaken this interest. And I believe that in nowadays society, people want to first have a nice experience. That means not 1 hour, but they want to have the feeling we actually do something like tango. So offer them a beginner's weekend. And after that, you might have a few people who say, we love it so much, we want to take more classes. But the weekly class thing is a thing from the past.
Exactly.
I don't say it doesn't exist anymore, but do not get things back that are not there anymore. If they're really motivated, they will come more often to classes. That means that from an organization point of view, because that's not necessarily a teaching point of view, you have to reinvent yourself instead of getting back in how it was. It's not like
that.
No,
it's different. But also the introduction maybe of new, like movie, film, etc. The use of media that they're used to, because I can see that they have YouTube now. They have all these sources of information if they're interested. So you really want to focus your teaching on things that you can only do physically, getting experience, and also getting feedback. Something that occurred to me during the first time during the teacher training is why I also was motivated to do it. That I hardly get any feedback as a person. As a dancer or as a leader, you hardly get any feedback. You're either kind of popular, and maybe followers that dance with you, they'll say, well, this was okay, but
a lot of the tango dancers, teachers, and certainly the addicted tango dancer has a social handicap.
Yes, yeah, because you don't get feedback, or they either ignore you, don't want to dance with you.
Nerd.
But if you're kind of popular, then they don't tell you what's wrong.
No, but listen, in olden days, we did it as well. After a class, I think it's very valuable to not structurize certain things. After a class, even in the very first year, I let people dance for half an hour. I took them to my room. I was still young, 24 years old, had only a student room, but it was big enough to say, let's come with 20 people after the class and we just have a drink. And then people started dancing and experimenting. They learned maybe more during that time than during the class.
Yeah.
So even that is part of that 70-30%. If you only use classes to let people grow, then you're missing the point. You also have to build in social time. And some people nowadays, and that has to do with the time limitation. In early days, you said, maybe you still remember that, Lucas, tonight I can't have dinner with you or I can't go to the movie because it's my tango evening. I have a tango class. Nowadays, people say, okay, my tango class is from 8 to 9, and they rush off because they have multiple social things on an evening. That doesn't help getting that whole social feel. So if you have that situation, you can say, no, you must stay. You can't make people stay. You can't. Some people will be motivated and stay anyway. Oh, I like it so much, but not the whole group anymore. Then you have to build this into your class. Make your class 50 minutes longer, do a break, and let people just interact in a different way. It's very simple. You don't have to say anything because people will stay till the end of the class. And if you have this 10 minutes break where people can take their own drinks and have a chit chat, then you can start having a nucleus around which social interaction starts. And what is very important, because sometimes in the class you say, let's switch partners or whatever. So leaders are meeting new followers, followers are meeting new leaders. But when do leaders meet leaders? This is applying to what you're missing, actually.
Exactly.
I do a lot of things where leaders form a conspiracy during a class and followers. And in a break, you see that leaders suddenly start talking to each other as well, and not just to the ones they switch partners with.
It's an important element of the teacher training that I like in the afternoons when you prepare, that you actually get feedback from people that are kind of on your level. In the Milonga, you don't get this feedback. I mean, you get your feedback in the next morning, but just preparing with someone, you get feedback on you do it this way.
But this is a need as a teacher or an aspirational teacher. A student, a dancer doesn't take a break to have feedback in how they dance. No. Okay, so that I'm talking now, but we need it. The dancer needs the social aspect, and therefore they will become better because they feel they start interacting, and maybe there is some dance interaction as well. As a teacher, you can open up that room by, for instance, doing sometimes an exercise with 4 leaders together. And so that they have also another kind of connection and a reason to talk about things during a break or after a class or in a milonga.
Yes. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye.
So the absence of feedback. You get feedback. Do you get a lot of feedback when you're dancing?
I sometimes ask for it. So, and I also I also take private lessons, so I generally get feedback on.
Then you get feedback, of course. Then you get it. But I think in general,
well, and you say that, huh? But in New York, the habit is for a lot of followers to take private classes. They have a trauma on group classes. And I know where it comes from because the situation in New York is totally different. So a lot of followers are taking private classes with a lot of leader teachers who are there present. So also with me, they always say, I only allow a follower to take classes with me if they bring a broom, so a partner. I still focus on the follower. I will dance with the follower as well, but I can't do a full class private with a follower and then saying, okay, let's now practice this bolero or whatever. And they say, no, just shut up and dance with me. Really, that's a lot of followers who are taking private classes do not want to learn, do not ask for feedback. They just want to have a good time dancing. And they're estranging themselves from going to a milonga because they paid for a professional teacher. Said my tariff as a gigolo is really much higher. Really? No, and I mean it, huh? I mean it. And I stopped doing this. And I said, I teach you with a broom or with a partner, or I will teach 2 of you or 1 of you within a couple. I will also dance with you. And when I feel that you're taking a class, then I can also work with you on your own, because then I can let you do an exercise. I can take some distance, look at you, then correct you again, then dancing again. That's fine. But if you just say, shut up and dance, no. And that happens a lot.
Wow.
And you're not creating the best environment, because I love New York as a city. I love New York as a social environment for tango, but there are lots of people who are taking themselves out of the community and consume tango and do that to so many that they're actually very rude. They're buying tango. I don't want to be part of that system.
No, well,
I don't want to.
In Florida as well, I understand. It's
okay.
The rate for taxi dancing is something that I could do in my pension.
Then be honest about it. That's fine, but don't say I take a class. Come on.
Yes.
Anyway, go.
So yeah.
Where are we? You tell us where we are.
So not everybody is asking for feedback. That's what I mean. If you ask for feedback, you're already learning how to learn. And this is a part of a teacher. You sometimes have to teach people how to learn. Not what to learn, but how to learn.
Do you also get that with people who want to be teachers in your teacher training?
Yeah, because if they come with a fixed thing, there are other teacher trainings as well, and they're focused still on figures and having a syllabus and growing. It's like learning a dictionary. So you can learn everywhere. You can teach, you can take classes and learn vocabulary. Then you just have to travel. I can offer you vocabulary, but I'm here to make you a better teacher. And that is a different angle.
Yeah.
And also, because you have to be willing to being criticized. But a student should be as well. If you're not willing to be criticized, then take my video. You don't hear me.
Yeah, that's very powerful.
Criticized.
Yeah.
I agree.
Being coachable.
Yeah, but you have to create it sometimes, huh? That's a voice from God.
That's a voice.
Like
walking interview.
Can we have more coffee, please? I'm serious, Alita.
Yeah, so what I want to get back to is this 70-30% rule that you have. So I see this a lot in what you've been saying also about the present. So about, for example, this teacher training, like you need to have a certain level of structure, but you also need to be able to adapt. But I do find it difficult, like you're telling these students like Martin to teach a trial class essentially or something like to just try teaching, I mean. But is this also according to the 70-30 rule? To what extent have you prepared them for that moment? And what, like it still feels to me as a listener, it kind of feels like you're throwing them in the deep end in a way. But I'm sure after hearing all this about the 70-30 rule, and that is probably not the case.
No. So we start not throwing them in front of the lines, although a precondition is if you take the teacher training, you must have an active group teaching. So it's not like I've never taught before and now I have to start teaching. This is my precondition because that creates a different set of people together. They already know what the
basics
stakes could be, the common things. They already experience teaching.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you have again like a complete beginners class, and then people are sometimes coming with some history of being a teacher in another field, but no, I want them having an experience of teaching. It can be a group of old people in an elderly home. I don't know, but then already you realize teaching is not just being a dancer showing something. We have a time frame, we have a group, we have our voice to teach, we have the hardware to use, we have the floor, how to handle that. All these aspects are already there. They already experience this. Otherwise,
sorry, you mean like they need to have already experienced teaching tango? So not something else, but tango.
Yeah. Sometimes people say, listen, my profession is teaching. I say, okay, then I advise you to do it as well. But now I have to trust you. But that happens seldomly.
Yeah, but there's a group of people that are on the hot seat, so to speak, and they're teaching, but there are also people that are observing.
And you can choose. When I don't know the people and having like a story of I haven't taught that much or I don't know, I said then be a fly on the wall. So then you're not a participant, not a full participant, but you are an extra. So
they don't get the hard feedback.
So they can watch and they can have a lot of schadenfreude.
Yeah.
and Martin,
I'm so happy that you're not there.
Yeah, but Martin, is that the first time you did the teacher training? Were you in the hot seat or not?
Oh yes, yeah.
But that's because you already.
I was already teaching. Yeah.
You mean the Los Locos Practica?
No. I was teaching in Amersfoort with.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
She prompted you, I think, huh?
Yeah, she told me to do it because she saw I was trying to explain a lot.
Yeah, too much. Yeah. Blah blah. Yeah. But so to get back to the question, so Eric prepares these people in the training, even though they're already teachers or have some experience.
So
you teach them to work along this with this rule, or is it not that fixed?
It's not that fixed. I give them a chance to change things, but listen, they come together. I always assume you don't know each other, although I know some of them already knew each other. And so we have to form a group. The first evening, that's my business. I'm making them a group. We're doing some practica, but there's no attention yet in showing off or whatever. And I explain about the structure. Most of the times there is this 70% rule already. So 70% is there, knows what's going to happen, and 30% is new. So especially for the 30%, I need to create a safe space for them. Those who came back already have the motivation. So that's of a lesser concern. And I feel in that first evening, this will become easier. Sometimes after an hour, I already feel they're linking, they're connecting. There's no people who haven't seen each other and sticking themselves out of the group. No, it starts to work. And then I prepare them, and I'm going to discuss things like, do you want to teach? Tomorrow we'll start in the evening teaching. During the day, we still have a lot of preparation, and I let them teach to each other so that the voice is already warmed up and they're getting more acquainted. And because I have to reassure myself, it is possible to say no. Don't let me teach on the first day. But mostly people want to do it because they are already motivated. They made the decision to do this week, and they see in the structure of on the internet what is being expected. So they already have an idea. And then I come up with a suggested structure, but I always say if you want to change it on the way, but I suggest to keep for the first day this structure that I offer so that you can fill it in. And if you have other ideas later on as a group, then please inform me. But it is a very workable thing. It's like, you know, it's a structure that is the classic structure of a class. In every class, like a whole weekend as well, you have this warming up moment to create the group, to feel confident, to see the space, and then you have the inspirational moment of let's focus, what should we work on? Then you're going to give them time, then you're going to give them some possibilities, then you're letting them anchor things, and then you're having a cool down. This is a very, very straightforward setup of a class in everything you do. Yes. Even if you make a marketing issue or a pitch, you start with warming up, you're coming to the issue, and you have a cooling down. It's like that. The same thing in a teacher week. So the first day is constructing that warming up thing to find that we are feeling okay. And then the thing happens indeed. So during the day, I come up with a few general things, especially about structure in a class, how you could do things, a few general things about didactics. Listen, I studied it for 4 years every day. We're doing now a 4-day session. I can't make things perfect. I can only open some doors and then see what happens. And then the first evening they started to teach, and very often the first evening is not the worst. But you realize a lot of things that can go wrong, but it's a good atmosphere, and you're shifting your gear onwards. But the second day, that's the tricky day, because then you think, now I understood this, now I understood that, and you're overly aware. And by being overly aware, you're restricting yourself as well, and it becomes sometimes a bit more awkward. And then you need the third day as well.
Correct. That's my experience too.
But this is the learning curve. It's always going like that. It's not going like this. And this is also happening to your students. So it's interesting if you are in a learning curve to discover that it's not always fixed. Put yourself back into the shoes of your students. They also come with their ups and downs, and you don't have to keep them up. Allow them to go down as well.
It's this what Eric just explained is also my experience. So the first evening you're kind of relieved, saying, "Well, it wasn't too bad, you know. We had to improvise. We're just starting with a new person, but then you get feedback, and the second day you think, well, I'm going in prepared now." And usually the mistake that you make, that I make, is you stick to your plan too much. You made a plan with someone, didactical plan, and you stick to it so much that it doesn't fit the group anymore. I think that's a theme that comes back.
And this is a theme that comes back in every learning curve, also your students. When you start dancing tango, the first five classes, you don't have an idea of how it's supposed to be. Well, you have an idea of how it's supposed to be. And your experience is, wow, this is fantastic. But we as a teacher might look at it and say, oh my God, these arms are horrible and you're jerking and you're not dancing with the music and you're going against the line of dance. And if you want to tweak everything, you will make them very anxious about everything. Oh my God. And this is where bad posture comes in. I see a lot of people dancing in bad posture because the very first 5 classes is much too stressed. Keep it easy. Let them allow to find out what dance is. And then you make your life much easier. And the same thing for teachers. If you put yourself too much into the position of this is what I should do, this is what I should do, but it will happen. Your students, even if they have a very relaxed 5 first classes, at a certain moment they realize, oh my God, my ocho is actually crap. I want to improve it. And they go through frustration. Having a desire to change something comes with frustration because you want to be in another place, but you are not there. And then you're like a child starting to learn how to handwrite. You know exactly how that A on paper looks like and how your teacher did it on the blackboard. And you know how you want it, but you can't. Your motor tuning, your fine tuning is not there. So you have to start studying, and not by knowledge. There are still people who stop making an awkward letter A and say, but how do I do that round movement? I can't explain this. So do it 100 times. This is really, it's also a body experience. And people are hiding very often in the Western society behind knowledge. I can't do it, so give me the knowledge how to do it. No, you have to create it yourself. So I have to give them confidence and motivation. Because if I just say dryly, let's do it 100 times, half of the people stop because people are not having that stamina. So you have to distract them in a way by using different music, by giving them sometimes a clue into the right direction. And meanwhile, they've done it 100 times without realizing it. But by giving them a new assignment, and this is what a lot of teachers do, they are satisfied with the ocho, how it is. And you see them dancing all these ochos. They're not perfect. So let's now do an ocho with an ocho cortado. They're immediately going to a variation. I think, come on, find other ways to keep them motivated, but still let them do a basic thing. And then at a certain moment, even within one class, people can find the body security that gives a palatable ocho. It's, of course, it's an endless development, but they should go home with a good feeling. The first 5 classes, whatever you did, they always went back with a good feeling, unless you go with a wife or a husband and start quarreling. But that's not a teacher's problem. But after 5 classes, then the challenge for a teacher begins. How can I give them the right amount of good feeling and desire to grow with accepting that it comes through pain? Passion means pain.
As our sons are going through that now. One of them is just saying, so, okay, so let me get this straight. So she, his girlfriend, will be able to dance in a couple of weeks. And for me, it will take a year. And then I didn't lie to him. So I said,
say it again.
Well, his girlfriend is talented, so she can dance, she can follow pretty well.
But this is according to you as a teacher.
Well, this is what they're saying.
This is your judgment.
This is what he's saying.
But this is what he says.
This is what he's saying to me. So she can dance very well.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm saying no. But it will take me a year. Is that the summary? And I said, basically, yeah.
And that helps him?
No,
No.
no, but I didn't want to lie to him. But
Sometimes you have to lie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it will be fun. Yeah.
Well, you can't predict. This is another thing. People say how it should feel.
Describing this crisis moment. After 6 or 7 times, he's starting to see the picture.
Tango dancing and dancing in general, couple dancing is very special because you can, if you want to, always blame the other. And I think part of what we should do is to always look into ourselves. How can we, without complaining about the other, improve and making it possible? And I feel that there's a fixed issue in tango. And this can be a joke. In early days, we always say, if it doesn't work, just blame the leader. A lot of the Argentinians say that to their followers.
Yeah.
And that's a very simplified way, and it's witty and do I know what, but it becomes a mantra. I've danced with people who actually did a gancho against the table without me leading any gancho, and they just blamed me. No, it's always the leader. What? You stick out a leg. I didn't do anything. It's always the leader. No. Come on. We are two of us. It's partnership.
Correct. Yes.
It's partnership.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a leader, but if you're treated on the toe, I will tell you, it's always the follower.
Usually. Yeah.
No, it's just a counter joke. But
yeah.
you have to acknowledge that fun and truisms have to be really true. And even if they're really true, I try to fuzzy the boundaries because I want people to not take things from the Bible as truth. I want them to feel that this is my truth at this moment. That's fine. That's fine.
Yes. Yeah.
So by labeling things like your son does, I'm just coming back as a teacher now, saying, yeah, but she has already this advantage. She already danced, or she.
Correct. Yeah, that's
as a follower, of course, you can dance within the instructions. It starts in a very black and white way. We have a leader and we have a follower. I think the process of tango is that it is getting like this. And you can't start with that. You can't start, hey, there's no leader. Although I embed it. When I do a teacher, a beginner's weekend or course, I let people move a lot to tango music, having a lot of fun, but with 3 or 4 people together. So not on a one-on-one basis.
And do you actually, that's interesting, because I started by teaching our sons to follow. And they, they were kind of amazed, you haven't actually taught me to follow, but I can follow you.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, this is the experience of your follower.
Yeah.
So,
but again, when is the moment?
But do you think that because my assumption is it will speed up their learning as a leader as well?
Yes, but don't tell them.
No, I didn't yet. But
now they see this video.
Yeah, but yeah, now they see this video. Yeah. No, but I think I only did it because I wanted to show them figures or moves or and I started leading them.
I think it's a very good decision.
And I think it helps them, but also it gets them to so that following looks a little bit easier in the beginning, but you have less workload maybe. But to become a good follower, that's the challenge. And I think it helps them also to accept that the leading may take a little bit longer.
But there's a difference between it helps them or it can help them.
Yeah, it can help them.
Words, coming to words, are very important. Through words, we communicate, even though we watch the video now, you're listening to our words. And words, I told you this anecdote already, can be so important when it's of help. When you say as a teacher a magical word, sometimes it helps the student so much without you realizing that this word becomes like a touch of magic. I had private students, I had them for 3 classes, but they didn't live in Nijmegen. So after these 3 classes, I haven't seen them for 3 years. During the 3 classes, they danced much too big and the space. So I diminished their space and I said, smaller, smaller. And then it started to arrive where we wanted to have it, and it was a good feeling. So I left them after 3 classes. I haven't seen them for 3 years. And then they came back and they danced everything so minimized. There was no power anymore. It was just, and I realized they had such a good experience with the word smaller that they continued working with the word smaller as if that would give them a better experience every time they use it. So words always have to keep being brought back into the context of what you really want. A word smaller, the end point is not the smallest ever. It was to tweak a thing that was much too big. So you have to also define as a teacher the bandwidth where you can maintain all the other aspects of the dance as well. And this is something that sometimes plays in a community. because I think by teaching students, we also teaching the beginning or the influence on a community. The first time when I was in Buenos Aires, there were some salons where was a lot of space, and there were salons that were busy, but not that much yet. There were not that many dancers yet. Because of the European visits of all of us who were interested in tango, the older people started to feel evaluated again, and they started to organize milongas there again. It was not done by the Buenos Aires people. That took another 10 years before young people from Buenos Aires and the lower ages started to contribute to milongas as well. So it was very minimized. It was like a subculture, and we were visiting, and therefore these people continued. And we were very often, I was for sure the youngest, I was 24, and all the people there were over 60. So they all died within the next 10, 20 years. And I didn't see any young people there because they were really not interested. It was like a dinosaur culture, even though it became out of their ashes again popular. It became popular because the Europeans came there. So there was some money. I was there when Pugliese was there, you know, he started his Casa de Tango. Everything was at the beginning again there, although we already took it as world dances and world culture is important, and we want to get into that. So we were the missing gap to continue tango. I'm very happy that this happened. But then in the mid-90s, more Europeans came, because here the culture became already bigger. In Argentina, it started to grow again, and a lot of the myths from then become truisms now. When you dance in Buenos Aires, you have to dance small. It's ridiculous. I've seen milongas in Buenos Aires as well, where we were with 4 people in a space of a sports hall, and they all danced like this. Then the word becomes so important. You must dance tango small. No, you dance tango in a flow. If it's busy on the street, you adjust your speed and size, of course. And if it's not busy, it's ridiculous to let the form prevail. You want to share the dance with your partner. In early days, I saw a lot of fantastic milongas, Sunderland, for instance, in the sports hall, and they dance, of course. They interacted with all the other dancers as well to make it nice, but they didn't dance like this. They were aware of the space and used the space. And when you use bigger type of music like Pugliese, because he made a lot of dance music, people think he did only the drama thing, but he did that because in the 60s and 70s and 80s, he was the only orchestra that continued, but he danced, he used it as the music in a theater. So there were no dancing was not allowed, was not popular, and people were sitting. So he offered another type of music, but he actually wanted to play for dancers. And when he came for the first time to the Netherlands, he did this thing with Piazzolla. I was there as well, of course. Fantastic in Amsterdam. You know about it, Lucas, I hope. But it was also horrible what happened there. I can tell you about that in a different time. But then I met him in Buenos Aires as well, and the tango world was very small. And he said, Eric, I will come again to the Netherlands. If I come back to the Netherlands, I want you to organize a milonga where we will play. So I went to the management that was in Europe, and I said, listen, Pugliese is coming. He wants to play in the milonga. I have a nice hall. I asked my tango daddy, Pepito, how does it work? How did it work in the 40s? Because in the 40s, they didn't use tandas, like as if it's now the standard. It's always been like that. We use the music of the golden decade, but we don't use the setup of the golden decade. We use the tanda and cortina structure because we think that has always been the way. It has not. In the 80s, that was only part of the milongas that used that structures, and other places were like
something I learned in a teacher training.
But it's interesting. Of course it's not, because in the 40s, people danced to the orchestras, and they didn't play 4 tangos and then 3 milongas. And then, of course not. They danced a whole palette, and they also played foxtrots. But the general setup was 1 instrumental tango, 1 sung tango, a waltz, again an instrumental tango, then a foxtrot, then 1 milonga. And they had the whole dance and medianoche. They changed the venues, the orchestras, and you had maybe on one night Ganado, and the late night was Pugliese. So you had these two flavors, and for the rest, they had the interaction in a different way. He said, I want to play with dancers, 4 dancers. So I asked Pepito, how did they do that in the 40s? Because even then, there were dancers and there were people who just came for the music. And the music part, or the audience of the music, was sitting in one half instead of sitting in front of the whole orchestra and having dancers in front of them dancing. They were sitting in one half, and the other half was for the dancers. So the orchestra had a direct contact with the listeners and a direct contact to the dancers. And the listeners were not disturbed by the dancers in between them and the orchestra, which makes sense. It's such an easy construction. So we set up O13 in Tilburg, because I organized the Milonga there, the dance evening with Pugliese, a whole evening of Pugliese. And there we danced indeed in that other half. And he said, this is the first time since the 50s that I play for dancers again, because nobody allowed it. Even in Buenos Aires, they said, out of appreciation for his music, we shouldn't dance to it, which is ridiculous. And he said, it's ridiculous. They always put me in theaters. I don't want to do that. And he played completely different. He didn't do that dramatic thing. He played for dancers. He even played the piano, and then he stopped and he communicated to this whole orchestra. And they looked at the dance floor to see, and then he went again. It was amazing. At the end of the evening, the dancers applauded the orchestra, of course, but the orchestra also applauded us. And he said, this is the only time. I hope we will have other times. He died 2 or 3 years later, but nobody else organized the Milonga anymore, out of respect for this man who said, I want to play for dancers. And still I hear also Argentinians saying, no, Pugliese is not for dancing. I said, you're lying. If you don't know it, say it. But now you're playing lying.
He also played other compositions, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. But of course, I understand what he wanted. In the time that tango was forbidden as a dance, as a social dance, he raised the tango into another area that was easy.
More like a cultural,
and an interesting program for just sitting down. And it became all more dramatic because it was not for dancers. But of course, in the Milonga, we don't play that music the whole time. We play more of the time of the danceable music, which is also there. But, you know, by telling this is how it is, you restrict all the other possibilities. I'm always aware when people say this is how it is, then I'm like triggered. So, is that so?
Yeah, so it's one. So for me, as I learned how much I didn't know about tango music during the teacher training, because stories like this, but also my preconceptions were all what you just said. From what I learned, but you know, after the teacher training, I realized how little I knew. And I really started studying more music, also to cater for teaching, but also in general just more tango history, because you know students also want to. So I share it with my son now.
It's nice, you know. Not everybody is interested in it. If you do too much, then students might also say, "Hey, listen, I'm fed up with all your stories. Now let's dance again." So it's again that 70-30. But I think the context. Although tango is reinvented every day, the context, the history is a thing that we should acknowledge and not doing as if, because nowadays it's so polarized sometimes. People say, no, you only have to do it the way it was in the 40s. No, you only have to do nuevo or whatever. It's not like that. Tango has always been the in-between part, because, you know, I remember very well the end of the 80s. I was in Buenos Aires and I was taken apart by a guy of 90 years old. And he said, listen, what you see now, that's not tango. And we saw the most perfect tango liso from the 40s. So we were in that environment. That's not tango. And he took me apart and he danced the canjenga from the 20s and 30s. He said, that is tango. And I understood instantly, like it's also a joke. In the Argentinian culture, they like to say this is not like how it should be. It is like that. But on the same page, they're meeting each other. And it's also a joke, but the Dutch and the Europeans and the Americans took it very seriously. So whenever they met an old, wise Argentinian like that, they took that knowledge and started to smash around like, no, this is not tango. This is not. So tango has always shifted and the music has shifted. You only have to listen to the music that you understand that dance and music and poetry interacts. And if you stop it by saying, this is the way, then you literally stop it and we will become a museum, which is not forbidden. But I like the golden period, but I'm not like, you can't do anything else. It's your taste. It's like going to an Italian restaurant and saying, listen, this is not it. You must cook sushi. But then you go to a sushi place. Jesus, it's as simple as that. And in tango, sometimes it's very black and white. It's either this or that. In early days, Lucas and Martin, we didn't have a choice because there were simply not enough dancers. Let's say the first 5 years, there were maybe 1,000 dancers in Europe, and we visited each other to having parties. And there was always part of some modern music and some non-tango music to have a moment of different ideas. And then we continued with tango again. And if you were more into the traditional way, then you had to sit out these 5 minutes and then you could continue. If you're just having the Nuevo way, then of course you might say the rest is boring, but with 1,000 people of a social scene, you don't have a lot of choice. Only when the scene grew, they said, hey, now we're going to do a Nuevo scene, or now we're going to do this. It pulls things apart, but what we lost is the connection, the holy mantra word of tango, connection. It's all about connection. Those who shout the loudest, it's all about connection, say, but this is wrong and this is right. So far about connection.
Yes.
Make a connection between what you like and what other people like and acknowledge them. You can still say, oh, it's not my cup of tea, but don't say this is the devil and this is not tango. That's killing the tango. It's killing the tango. And the same thing in teaching.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you start saying this is right and this is wrong, I know teachers who say no, and if you go there, then you can never come back into my salon again because you're doing the wrong thing. I know them. I had people crying on the phone, telling, my teacher says this and this and this. And this. My God, is this the role of a teacher?
I think that's also, I think, a theme in the teacher training is that there is no really preconceived approach to like a standard for tango teaching. It was a big takeaway for me as well. I think just being, I mean, you have to grow yourself technically, knowledge, musically, etc. But this idea of I'm going to look at this group and or this person, and I'm going to use my experience and my creativity to teach him what they need now, and also be free enough to perform, to show that to them, to bring that to them. I think that was an important takeaway for me.
Being the example is a very big thing as well.
That's also an important thing.
Practicing what you preach, because
Exactly,
being inconsistent, saying, you should never do a big back step, and then doing it when you're dancing in the salon.
So it's a great way to grow yourself, but also to keep this open mind. I think there is no set way, no method that is assured to bring a result as a teacher. But there's one thing that always works, is that you look at the group and see what's necessary. And then, of course, you have to make sure. So for me, it's like really an engine also for personal growth, technically, as I said just before, but also didactically to grow as a person, because you want to be able to give them what they need at that moment. That flexibility. So it changed my perception really of teaching tango. Even now, when I explain to people, when they say, "Is it very technical?" I say, "Well, it's not technical. It's more about inspiring and giving them what they need at this moment." And I think that's what the feedback.
If people understand it, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
I basically say yes.
Yes. You mean you say yes? What?
Okay, now it starts. If I just say yes, then there's always a counter question. Then we get wiser.
Yeah.
If they say, is it technical? Say yes.
Okay.
But is it not about the feeling? Yes.
Yes, also. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because people, this is the beginning part. People want to know in which drawer they want to put it. It's a yes or a no.
Mhm.
So I will make it easy. I will say yes, but a yes isn't satisfying their answer.
Yeah. Yeah. I think actually I learned a lot of technical things as well. Yeah. So that's confusing. Yeah.
How big should I go to the side? I always say 42 and a half.
I think the answer was 42, wasn't it? Yeah.
That's an answer to everything. That's true. But that triggers that. What do you mean? What do we have? Centimeters?
Mhm. Yeah. So the theme is also, I mean, the approach is that it's not standard. I think that's what you learn. And also, so people that come into the training, some of them I saw, some of the participants were really coming from that school.
From the school of being
Yeah.
precise or
Yeah, and also
faking precision.
the sequence, and it has to be in a
Of
certain way.
course, this is still the
And
majority.
they're very often very confused in the beginning. Yeah.
But don't forget, let's say there are, I don't know what, 3,000 teachers in the world,
Mhm.
Tango teachers. How many of them actually studied teaching? I mean, they started because they love the
Correct.
dance and they want
Yeah.
to share. The problem is if you think that the moment you are being lifted by a group to become a teacher, you are more than just them, they can't afford themselves to be insecure. And it's like the culture that's part of the culture of Argentina. In South America, the Argentinians are famous because they always say, how does an Argentinian commit suicide?
Oh yeah.
By jumping off their pedestal.
Exactly.
And this is really, it's a joke known in the whole of South America, and there is some truth. It's in the culture, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it also means that they cannot allow themselves to say, I don't know.
Mhm.
They cannot.
Mhm.
People who just started dancing tango in the 95s, last century, 30 years ago, and they were Argentinian. They just started dancing themselves. They didn't have a clue. And an American would ask them, well, do you like the Angeles to dance to it? And they said no. And the American went back and said, the Argentinians say they leave the Angeles. Really, this is what people are always looking for.
Yeah.
And it's dangerous. I think as a teacher, you have the power of being insecure. At the beginning, I said a lot, like, let me come back to that. I will study this. This is a good question. I have no answer to this.
Mhm.
And that made me very relaxed and being ready to learn for my growth as well as a teacher. But a teacher has different needs. We need to understand at a different level than the people who are actually doing it.
Mhm. Mhm.
So do not project that to them, your own process. Keep that to yourself.
Mhm.
And questions are the most important things, but questions should lead to inner growth, not to getting the truth from somebody else.
Yeah.
Because then it becomes like a Bible. A good
Yeah.
preacher will not literally say this is how it is in the Bible, but they will tell the deeper meanings behind it.
Mhm. Yeah.
And leaving space to reinterpret.
Are you still getting what you want? Because
Yes.
we're having a fun
I'm
conversation.
hungry.
Yeah. Yes, no, we're almost nearing 2 hours now, so it's
What? What? Really?
yes, but that's what I warned you about with interviews. Like the time goes much faster than you think. But it was absolutely fascinating to learn from Eric's vast experience, and I know, like, I already knew his experience was fast, but huge. But when I hear you talk about tango teaching, it's just like it's clear from every word that you have these immense layers of depth in what you say, and it's I mean it's certainly worth the 2 hours of listening. So I'm fascinating listening to it, and I also thought it was interesting to have Martin as like a not just someone who contributes, but also
Like a
another
sidekick.
interviewer. So
Oh.
yeah, no, you're also my sidekick. So
Okay.
you're So it's
we were only scratching the surface here because
Yeah.
I mean during the training, for instance, what we just didn't pay any attention to. But for instance, I've never seen teachers working with props, with tools. Eric has like a big box of hula hoops and sticks and things that
Yeah.
they also challenges us to work with, to have people work with constraints and group exercises, and maybe we're looking at the philosophy of the program, but all these tools for me were totally new, and so very interesting part of it. So we could do a whole section on that.
Finalize it on my side. I think teaching has to do a lot with playful learning. As a child, you do not start with the correct order of words and smashing them, and you start with the square root of this. No, you build it up. So, and also discovering the fun. I think the fun should be the motivating factor. And don't forget that dancing is a hobby, basically, not for the professionals, but it's a hobby. And you do that hobby because you want to have fun. It's not a sad thought to dance to, as the Discipolo always said, and as we call it's not a sad, it can be a sad thought, it can be melancholic, it can be also very witty. It's just a good pastime. And that's all it is to it. Don't make it sacred.
Yeah, a lot of the feedback that we go, well, was it any fun? But yeah.
And it's not about making it fun, then that's forced as well.
Yeah.
But isn't this the inner thread? We do something we love, that's all. Don't put anything to it. The conditions to have fun is for everybody different. But we do it because we want to have a good time, not because we want to have a bad time. That would be a very strange motivation.
This looks like a natural cut
Yeah, true.
summary.
No, but it's I think we should finish it now because of the time. But yeah, we could go on easily talk for another 2 hours, I think. But let's end it here. But it was, yeah, like I said, it was really interesting to learn from this experience and also see the interaction between you guys. I thought it was a very big added value to this
Nice.
to this interview. So I hope to speak to you again soon. And yeah, I also think you're probably gonna keep talking for a while. So together, I mean, because you're now you're together. Yeah. So Martin is visiting Eric for this interview, and yeah, I'm sure you'll be talking a lot about tango the rest of this afternoon. But that's yeah, that's how it goes.
And I'll be seeing you next Tuesday.
Yes, yes. So in just 2 days, right?
Yes.
Or is it? Yeah, 2 days. Yeah. It's so see you soon, and I hope to speak to Eric again as well very soon.
Nice.
Thank you, Lucas.
Thank you for this interview.
Lovely.
Bye.
See ya.